can't think of something to say before this review. No joke, no remark, no comment about the movie. Might as well just start the review, I guess.
I've spent so many years peering through time, looking for you.
Doctor Strange is yet another MCU origin story, and it is yet another good MCU origin story. And this movie's great. I'm not even gonna hype up that opinion. I'm just gonna tell you just straight right off the bat, Doctor Strange is a really good movie, and I only like it more and more as time goes on. And now I'm gonna spend the next little while telling you that. So, the story of Doctor Strange, which, by the way, I love that Doctor Strange is both his real name and his superhero name. He didn't bother to change it. He just goes by Doctor Strange because his name was that cool. Anyway, Doctor Strange is a very good neurosurgeon and a very rich neurosurgeon. He has a lot of money. He's living large. He's pretty renowned. People will gather to watch him do surgeries. He has a perfect record, but he's also a dickhead. He might actually have Tony Stark beat. This is a man who picks the patients he's going to treat based off the chance they have of screwing up his perfect record. That's pretty bad. So what is this dickheadedness getting? He crashes his Lambo because he was going like 80 on a mountain road while it was raining at night, and he was basically texting and driving. Kind of had that coming. I don't really feel sorry for him. So he destroys his hands in the wreck, and he can't even bring himself to thank or respect the surgeon who tried his best to fix Doctor Strange's hands. And now Strange's hands permanently shake like that. So he loses all his money because he spends everything he has on Western medicine, and then when it fails, he goes to a little place called Comertage to become a wizard. Yeah. The character of Doctor Strange is hands down a top 5 MCU character for me. He is amazing in this film. He has a great character arc, and Benedict Cumberbatch is fantastic in the role. But there is one thing I wish they did differently. Why couldn't he just have a British accent? And don't say comic accuracy, because comics don't talk. I don't even live in New York, and I know that not everyone who lives in New York has a New York accent. They could have just given Doctor Strange his normal British accent and not cast yet another British guy to have an American accent. It's just a nitpick. It's not a big deal. It's just a nitpick. But man, I love this dude. He starts out as a complete asshole. And then as he grows in magic, he grows as a person. And then by the end of the movie, he gives up getting his life back in favor of just becoming basically the defender of not Earth, not the universe, but basically the multiverse is what he becomes the defender of. That moment when the Ancient One calls him out on his BS is one of my favorite MCU moments, by the way.
It's not about you.
And if I'm being honest, all but one of the characters in this movie is great. Rachel McAdams plays Christine Palmer, who's not really a love interest. I love this. Her and Strange have a romantic history, and the movie acknowledges that. But at this point in time, they're just friends. I wish more MCU movies would do this. There don't always have to be romantic relationships. People can just be friends. It's what I loved so much about Shang-Chi and Katie's relationship, and it's what I love so much about Thena and Gilgamesh's relationship, is that they're just friends. They don't have to be in a romantic relationship. As for the rest of the supporting cast, Chiwetel Ejiofor played Mordo in this movie before he becomes a villain. And it's pretty cool how the movie's both an origin for Doctor Strange as a hero and Mordo as a villain. Mordo is very by the book. He follows the magic rules to a T. So when he finds Doctor Strange messing with time when he's not supposed to, or he finds the Ancient One harnessing dark dimension energy when she's not supposed to, he's not going to take that well, and that results in him going down a dark path and deciding to just stop all the sorcerers and Him and Strange are such magic powerhouses, I cannot wait to see them throw down on screen. And speaking of the Ancient One, she has been the centerpiece of controversy in this movie ever since it was announced that Tilda Swinton would play the character. I don't like what Marvel did race bending and whitewashing this character. I'm not in support of that. I'm someone who wishes they just did the Ancient One as it's supposed to be. That said, I'm not going to factor that into my opinion of the Ancient One. I love this character so much. She is my favorite character in this movie. Besides Wong, of course. She has so much depth and history to her. Every line she says is as golden as the robes she wears.
You cannot beat a river into submission. You have to surrender to its current and use its power as your own.
Death is what gives life meaning. To know your days are numbered. Your time is short. Stretching one moment out into 1,000, just so that I can watch the snow.
And can we talk about how cool her entrance is? Like the first thing she does in the movie is blast Strange out of his own body and then refuses to teach him. That is straight savage. And her scene with Doctor Strange when she dies, which I mentioned a bit earlier, one of my all-time favorite MCU scenes. It's beautiful. In fact, my final for one of my classes this semester, I picked this scene and I'm redoing it in a unique way. I'll probably upload it when it's done, actually. You know something I noticed about all the characters in this movie? Is that Doctor Strange has amazing chemistry with every single one of them. There is a connection felt with every character in this movie, all of them. Mordo, Christine, Wong, the Ancient One, Caecilius, Dormammu, Strange's therapist, Jonathan Pangborn, even Christine's boyfriend. Every single one of them feels like a character who has a relationship with Doctor Strange. But with that said, let's talk about Caecilius. I hold in my hand the Doctor Strange Prelude comic, a comic I once considered canon. Now, I don't really know if it's canon or not. I kind of forgot the comic exists. But that's not the point. This comic touches on Caecilius' origin. And I am going to read to you his motivation for what he does in the movie. Okay? He's talking about his wife, by the way. It would have been a mercy had you died there that day on the waterfront, but time is unmerciful. I knew before the doctor even set foot in that room that you were lost to me, just as our son was lost to us, and you were going to be joined together in a place I could not follow. I failed you both. It took every ounce of strength I had not to dive into that coffin with you. In the months that followed, I considered other avenues, anything to see you again. And then the comic, as you read it, he sees the Book of Cagliostro and he tries to figure out how to destroy the enemy, that is time. Why was none of that touched on in the movie? That is so good. He could have been the best MCU villain. Reading this little passage from the comic makes him such an awesome character, such a fleshed out character, and one of the best villains. Problem is, you don't get any of that on screen. All you know on screen is that he says, yeah, time sucks. Time's the enemy. Yeah, cool. Yeah, sure. I agree. Cool motive. But why do you feel that way? I shouldn't have to read a comic to figure that out. I do not like 3D movies. They aren't my thing. That said, I really wish that I saw Doctor Strange in 3D. It would be perfect for that. The movie looks like it was meant to be watched in 3D. The entire chase scene in the mirror dimension is an acid trip. What do you reckon watching this movie high would be like? If you've ever watched Doctor Strange high, let me know. Let's talk about that chase scene for a sec. It's my absolute favorite MCU chase scene. Actually, it's not really a scene, it's a sequence. It goes on for a while. It starts out as a fight scene, and then turns into a chase scene. Then the chase escalates into just balls to the wall insanity, and then turns back into a fight scene where the Ancient One gets to kick ass and then gets killed. It is gorgeous. Visually, yeah, the movie's great also. But it's not just the chase. This movie has quite possibly the coolest action of the MCU. You know what's lit is the final fight. The entire place moving in reverse, but all the wizards moving forward. What was the pitch like for this movie? Did they just say, this would be nuts, and then they went with it? Because that worked. And if this is the action we get in the first movie, imagine what it's going to be like when Scarlet Witch is thrown into the mix. But the final fight isn't really the final fight. This movie subverts expectations so well. Because the real final conflict of this movie is not Doctor Strange versus Caecilius, it's Doctor Strange versus Dormammu. But instead of fighting Dormammu, Doctor Strange just puts him in a time loop and just lets Dormammu keep killing him until he gets bored and just goes away. Also, this line.
Dormammu, I've come to bargain.
I love it. You love it. Everyone loves it. I will say that there is one moment where the movie breaks its own rules that I don't fully understand. And that's when Strange and one of the Zealots are fighting in their astral bodies and are interacting with things in the real world, despite fighting in what is essentially the spirit world. Like, they knock a bunch of stuff over, they knock snacks out of the vending machine, they run into Christine at some point. It doesn't make any sense because they're not really fighting in the real world, so I don't know how they interact with it. The movie has a lot of exposition, and the movie does exposition really well. It's very entertaining exposition. But it spends half its runtime explaining its own rules and still manages to break them. Not as bad as Ant-Man, though. And now I'm just going to talk about a few things I liked in this movie, but didn't really know where to put them in the review. Doctor Strange getting the Cloak of Levitation is incredible. The CGI in this movie has no right being this good. I know Jungle Book had great CGI, but a part of me is still upset that this movie didn't win the Academy Award for Best Visual Effects that year.
Worlds without end. Some benevolent and life-giving.
And now I'm going to talk about a couple things I wasn't a huge fan of. I was not a huge fan of Michael Giacchino's score. Aside from the main theme, which is literally just the theme from Star Trek 2009. Nothing really stands out to me music-wise. I honestly can't think of another piece of music off the top of my head besides the main theme that plays when Strange does something badass. And I still have not figured out the timeline of this movie, because it doesn't take place over a week, it takes place over a year, I think. The idea is that if you watch the tree in Comertage, you can track the changing of the seasons and figure out the timeline of this movie. But the tree is only ever in the background, so you're not paying attention to it. Remember in Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, every time the season changed, it cut to a shot of the Whomping Willow. Like, you would see it shake the leaves off, you would see it shake the snow off. They would show the seasons changing. And it worked not just to show passage of time, but also a transition between two scenes in the movie. They didn't hide it subtly in the background and expect the audience to just figure it out. They presented that information to you. When I watch Doctor Strange, I'm not paying attention to the background. I'm paying attention to what's happening on screen. And when I watch the movie like a normal person, I get the sense that Doctor Strange went from being a broken man to the master of the mystic arts, reading every book in the library and beating Dormammu in about a week. I do not get the sense that the movie takes place over about a year, maybe more. No, oh yeah, how could I forget? The Time Stone's in this movie, and they're really nonchalant about it being there. I kind of wish they gave a bit of an explanation about it. Wong just says it's an Infinity Stone and then moves on. Now I get that's because at this point, a lot of the audience had become, they had become conditioned to what Infinity Stones were and they knew what it was leading to. But Doctor Strange didn't know what they were. How come he didn't ask a question? How come Wong didn't give a very short monologue on what the Infinity Stones are and the fact that Doctor Strange is carrying one around his neck? If I was carrying a necklace around my neck and someone's like, oh hey, you're carrying one of the 6 most powerful things in the universe around your neck, I would probably want to inquire as to whether or not I should still be wearing it around my neck. But the Time Stone's badass. Second best Infinity Stone. Not telling you what the first one is. Doctor Strange overall is just a great movie. It's one of my favorite MCU origin stories and it introduces one of my favorite MCU characters. I'm going to give Doctor Strange a B+. There you guys have it. That's my review for Doctor Strange. Now in about 4 minutes, I gotta tune in to whatever Marvel's doing for Disney Plus days so I can get a bunch of content out about that. Although I guess this video is going up after all that, so you'll see all those notifications before you see this video. But what did you guys think of Doctor Strange? Let me know your thoughts on the movie down in the comments below. Also leave a like on this video, subscribe, click on the bell icon to receive all notifications from the MCU HQ. That's gonna be it. Have a great day, guys.